Hi! Here at Good Enough Book Marketing, I coach authors of all genres and publishing paths on how to be more efficient in their marketing effort so they can get back to writing. One of the ways I do this is by interviewing experts in the various industries that you as authors are trying to reach, such as the media, agents, publishing executives, and more. This interview is very special to me. I got to chat with none other than my own husband, who spent 10 years as a journalist working both in newspapers and radio. John's last media job was as a news reporter for Minnesota Public Radio, one of the largest media organizations in the Midwest, whose listenership is approximately 1 million people. He has also freelanced for NPR, as in National Public Radio, and his stories were picked up in major national outlets, including USA Today and US News and World Report. So although I have a bit of a bias when it comes to John's expertise, he definitely knows his stuff. As a general regional reporter, John covered all types of news and feature stories happening in his coverage area, and that included local authors who landed book deals. I will link to some of his book stories in the show notes. Although he's no longer in the media, I will also include links to his personal website and social media accounts if you want to give him a follow. We had a conversation specifically focused on press releases. How effective are they really? What not to do when writing one, stuff like that. The focus of this conversation was about sending press releases to your general regional media for a feature story on your book or your journey as an author, not sending press releases out to, say, a book reviewer or a specific arts reporter. That's a conversation for another day. I hope you enjoy this clip. If you find the information helpful, our conversation in its entirety can be found in my online membership group. Details for that are in the show notes too. Enjoy! So what is the biggest secret or the biggest thing you've always wanted to say to people who are submitting press releases? Like, air your pet peeves on us right now.
Yeah, don't get creative with it. Do not. I can't tell you the number of press releases I got that were like, imagine this. It's like, just do it normal. Just say, so and so wrote a book. I'm opening so many of these things that my eye knows where to go in the press release. So I can skim it, right? If you make it weird, I can't do that, and it's going to make me mad. Don't say, it's the year 18 whatever. Don't open in a narrative form. Don't be overly personable. Obviously, don't just write like a robot, but don't make it sound like you're sending this to your friends. It's weird. Don't use odd fonts. Don't make it colorful. Just be normal. Just be normal. Yeah.
I imagine that the people who wrote those creative pitches were trying to stand out from among other press releases.
Don't try to stand out. Don't. I'm going to read them all. Don't worry about it.
You're going to read them all, and the thing that makes it stand out should be the content is that good.
Yes.
You as an author are that interesting that even a boring press release about you is intriguing.
Or it's clear to me there's an angle, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the books I wrote about was written by this young Ojibwe author who grew up on the reservation near my town and worked at the casino, and then wrote this book at 2 a.m. when he couldn't sleep. And it was this great angle of you could imagine, even though it wasn't written in an imaginative way, the press release wasn't. You could read into it that there was going to be a good angle here of this sort of desperate young guy telling this great story. No, it's fantastic. So that's what you want. It's a little hint that there's going to be a good angle there within the press release.
What is the biggest secret the media doesn't disclose or doesn't want to disclose about how to get featured?
That it's purely luck. It's simply how busy am I? Mm-hmm. So there was one day a week, and it varied throughout my career, but there was one day a week when you had to tell your editor all the stories you were working on that week. And if it wasn't a handful of stories, you were going to get assigned really terrible, dumb stories from not your coverage area. So you had to make it feel like you were busy, really busy and really excited about these stories. And there, again, like I said, there are periods of time when there's nothing happening. That's the whole danger of covering a region, instead of a beat, is sometimes your whole region is just kind of dead. People are in hibernation. And so if on that day, like I said, I'd get in at 7, and the pitch meeting was usually around 9 when everyone else was in. And so those 2 hours was just like, I got to find some stuff to tell my editor. And if I happened to get an email in that period of time that was like, hey, a local guy wrote a book, I was pitching that immediately. And if I was busy, I wasn't pitching that. So the whole thing is luck. Are they busy? Are they not busy? Are they desperate for stories, or do they have enough stories? It's luck, which is sad to say. I wish I could tell you something different, but that's what it is.
Well, and that kind of, I have another question that is in that vein, which is there a good time of year or time of day that you have better odds, if you send a press release during that period?
It's good to have the press releases there waiting in the morning versus coming in the evening. It's completely useless for me at 4:30 to get a press release because I'm not going to do anything with it, and by the next day I've probably forgotten. So waiting in the morning is good. The other thing is if you're specifically targeting a certain reporter, it'd probably be a good move to make sure that there hasn't been like a plane crash or a school shooting like right then, because they'll never see it if that's the case. Another good thing would be, if you're getting this granular with it, you could check. Most places have you click on the reporter online, and they'll have like all the stories they've done. If you're getting that granular, you could look at that list and see if they've done anything recently, and if it looks like they're lagging, like they haven't done many stories, your odds are pretty good.
They're probably desperate then.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about something that a complaint I hear all the time. And I would like you to address, which is people complaining that they didn't get to read a reporter's story before it came out. They want to read it and proof it. What if I have corrections? Because sometimes reporters actually get things wrong, and then the author or whoever the subject matter is complaining that if I had just read this first, I could have caught this for you.
Yeah, no reporter's going to do that. I got that so many times. People always want, it's like, can I proof the story before you publish it? No. And no reporter will. It's something we were taught in journalism school that you don't do that. There are a bunch of reasons, some good and some bad. The good ones are, essentially, we're supposed to be unbiased in the media.
Even when writing feature stories.
Even when writing feature stories. And if I know I have to send it to the author, I can't be mean or even honest. Like, the whole thing with unbiased is you could get a good story or a bad story, and generally it's a good story. But there has to be the opportunity for honesty. And if I know that the author has to sign off on the story before it goes out, then it's only going to be a good story, or it's going to be no story at all. So there's no level of unbiasedness that's achievable if it has to be run past the author. The other reason that's also a good reason is simply that people are self-conscious, and they don't like the sound of their own voice, and oftentimes they're surprised by what makes it into the story. Like, they would tell some little human anecdote, and I would put that in as color, and it sort of humanized them, but they'd often be like, well, that's not on message, right? I don't care if it's on message. It's like my job to humanize the person and make an interesting story. People are not good at understanding what is good and fun and interesting about themselves.
Yeah, if I can interject,
yeah.
A number of times I have had friends come to me like with a newspaper in hand and be like, can you believe what so-and-so wrote about our event? And I'm reading this like in front of them sometimes, laughing and delighted, even though I know the subject matter, because the reporter just made them sound interesting and cool. And here my friends are like really offended because they think they are coming off as kind of unintelligent or unprofessional. And I'm like, no, this is good press. I think this is great. But because they are self-conscious, they don't realize that the reporter was actually doing them a favor by making them giving color to the story.
Yeah.
And if you got to read that ahead of time, you would immediately just pull the story and tell the writer you didn't want to be featured because you would just get too nervous.
The things that you think are your flaws are the things that make you interesting in a story. They're the best. Like the things that people would want to take out are always the best parts of the story. So that's another good reason. The bad reason is also that like reporters, we have so little power in the world, and we just want to hold on to what little we have too. So there's the bad reason, the selfish reason.
I would add one
but
more,
mostly it's good reason.
which is timing.
Yes.
The press is under the gun every single day. There are deadlines in every single day in every type of media. Even if it's like a weekly paper, there's some kind of deadline that day that they are busy with. If you as a reporter had to send your story to every single person in your story to read before it came out, it would delay a story that was a quick turnaround. It would turn it into like 4 days later by the time everybody has proofed it.
Yeah.
And that just it would just be so much chaos.